The night of June 29th, 1991, in Parañaque City, Philippines, marked the beginning of a story that would grip the nation for decades. Lauro Vizconde, an immigrant working in the United States, was living the dream, building a future for his family back home. But a single phone call shattered that dream into a million pieces. On the other end of the line was the devastating news. His wife, Estrelita, and their two daughters, Carmela and Jennifer, had been brutally murdered in their own home. Lauro rushed back to the Philippines, only to be met with a scene of unimaginable horror. Estrelita, 47, had been stabbed 13 times. Carmela, 18, had been assaulted and stabbed 17 times. And Jennifer, just 6 years old, had been stabbed 19 times. The nation was in shock. The crime wasn't just a murder, it was an act of pure evil that defied comprehension. The public outcry was immediate and immense. Who could commit such a heinous act against an innocent family? The pressure was on for law enforcement to find the culprits and deliver justice. The initial investigation, however, was fraught with challenges and frustrating dead ends. The crime scene was reportedly compromised, and for years, the case went cold. Lauro Vizconde, consumed by grief, transformed into a relentless advocate for justice. He became a public figure, his face a constant reminder of the tragedy and the justice system's failure to solve it. His pain was the nation's pain, and his quest became a national obsession. The question lingered in the air for 4 long years. Who killed the Then, in 1995, a supposed witness emerged, Jessica Alfaro. She came forward with a story that would ignite the case and point fingers at some of the most prominent families in the country. Alfaro claimed she was with a group of young men from wealthy and influential backgrounds on the night of the murders. She identified the alleged ringleader as Hubert Webb, the son of a famous basketball player and then senator, Freddie Webb. According to Hubert and several of his friends, including Antonio Tony Boy Lajano II, son of an actress, and Michael Gatchalian, son of a businessman, were responsible for the crime. Alfaro's testimony was graphic and detailed. She recounted a night of partying that spiraled into a horrific home invasion. Her story provided a narrative that the public had been desperate for. It named names, offered a motive, however senseless, and painted a picture of entitled youth running amok with no fear of consequences. The media frenzy was instantaneous. Hubert Webb and the other accused men became household names, their faces plastered across every newspaper and television screen. The accused, however, vehemently denied the allegations. The Webb family, in particular, mounted a powerful defense. They presented a mountain of evidence to prove that Hubert was not even in the Philippines at the time of the crime. They produced airline tickets, immigration records, photographs, and videotapes, all suggesting that Hubert Webb was in the United States from March 1991 to October 1992. His friends and family in the U.S. testified, confirming his presence there. The defense argued that it was physically impossible for him to have committed the crime. This created a classic courtroom dilemma. Who do you believe? Do you trust the detailed, eyewitness account of Jessica Alfaro, who claimed to have been there? Or do you trust the seemingly irrefutable documentary evidence presented by the Webb family? The prosecution's case hinged almost entirely on Alfaro's testimony. They portrayed her as a brave woman risking her life to tell the truth. The defense, on the other hand, painted her as an unreliable narrator, a government informant with a history of fabricating stories, possibly motivated by a reward or other incentives. The trial, dubbed the trial of the century, became a spectacle. It lasted 4 years, with every twist and turn captivating the Filipino public. The courtroom was a theater of raw emotion. On one side, Lauro Vizconde, a symbol of a grieving father's undying love and quest for justice. On the other, the families of the accused, fighting desperately to prove their son's innocence. The social and class undertones were impossible to ignore. A battle between the ordinary, grieving citizen and the powerful, influential elite. In January of 2000, after years of litigation, Judge Amparo Tolentino delivered the verdict. The court found Hubert Webb and his co-accused guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and sentenced them to life imprisonment. The decision was based primarily on the credibility of Jessica Alfaro's testimony. The court dismissed the defense's alibi, questioning the authenticity of the evidence and suggesting it could have been fabricated. For Lauro Vizconde, it was a moment of vindication. For the Webb family and the other accused, it was a devastating blow, a miscarriage of justice they vowed to fight. The accused were sent to the New Bilibid prison, where they would spend the next decade of their lives. But they never stopped fighting. They filed appeal after appeal, maintaining their innocence. Their case slowly made its way through the appellate courts, and finally, to the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court of the Philippines. Then, in a stunning reversal that sent shockwaves across the country, the Supreme Court acquitted Hubert Webb and his co-accused on December 14, 2010. After 15 years in prison, they were ordered to be released immediately. The High Court's decision was a scathing critique of the prosecution's case. The Justices ruled that Jessica Alfaro's testimony was riddled with inconsistencies and contradictions, making it unreliable and not credible. They found that the prosecution had failed to prove the guilt of the accused beyond a reasonable doubt. The court also pointed out the failure of the prosecution to present key DNA evidence, semen samples taken from Carmela's body, which had mysteriously disappeared while in the custody of the National Bureau of Investigation. The acquittal was a seismic event. For the Webb family, it was a miracle, the culmination of a 15-year-long nightmare. Hubert Webb, a free man at last, walked out of prison into a world that had changed completely. But for Loro Vizconde, the decision was the ultimate betrayal. The justice he thought he had finally secured was snatched away. He was back to square one, his family's case officially unsolved. His grief was palpable, and his reaction was one of profound despair. The Vizconde massacre remains one of the most controversial and debated cases in Philippine history. It raises profound questions about the justice system, the role of media, and the influence of power and wealth. Was Jessica Alfaro a brave witness or a pathological liar? Was Hubert Webb a privileged killer who got away with it? Or an innocent man who lost 15 years of his life due to a flawed investigation and a perjured testimony? Sadly, we may never know the definitive truth. With the acquittal, the legal road for this particular set of suspects came to an end, and because the crime was committed before the Philippines abolished the statute of limitations for heinous crimes, the case officially prescribed or expired in 2011. This means that no new charges can be filed. The case is, for all legal intents and purposes, closed forever. The Vizconde story is a tragedy on multiple levels. It's the tragedy of a family brutally wiped out. It's the tragedy of a father who died in 2016 without ever finding true closure. And it's the tragedy of a justice system that, in this case, left everyone with more questions than answers. The legacy of the Vizconde massacre is a haunting reminder of the fragility of truth and the elusive nature of justice. Thank you for watching.